What's up everybody? This is a Hyundai Santa Fe Limited Hybrid, and today I'm going to review this car for you. We're going to talk about what is a Hyundai Santa Fe. We're going to look at the Santa Fe versus the Tucson because one of this car's most deadliest rivals shares a dealership with it. We are going to measure out the cargo space, we're going to look at the passenger room, and we're going to look at the features on this car. Now, as always, if some of that sounds interesting and some of it sounds boring, check the description below for timestamps. So just what is a Hyundai Santa Fe? Well, it is a very significant vehicle for Hyundai because way back in 2000, this was the first SUV that they ever released, and at the time it was a huge success for them, and it continues to be to this day. Now at this point it's gone through a few generations, it's grown, it's shrunk, but as it stands right now in 2022, and this is a 2022 model, this is either the largest of the compact SUVs or the smallest of the mid-sized SUVs. So you're going to have a little bit more room in it than, say, a Subaru Forester, a Honda CR-V, a Toyota RAV4. It's slightly larger than those, but it's not anywhere near as big as something like a Honda Pilot, a Ford Explorer. Those are on kind of the top end of the mid-sized SUV scale as far as size goes. This is not available with a third row seat currently. They have built it with a third row seat in the previous generations, but as of right now, the Santa Fe only comes with 2 rows of seats. But if you need something that's a little bit roomier than the standard sort of CR-V type choices in the class, but not quite as large as a Pilot or an Explorer, the Santa Fe may be a good choice. But is it a better choice than a Tucson? But here's the big question. Should you buy a Hyundai Santa Fe or a Hyundai Tucson? They're both Hyundais, they're both compact-ish SUVs, they're both named after southwestern American cities, so what is the distinction? Well, the Santa Fe is $2,000 to $3,000 more expensive depending on the trim level and the package. The Santa Fe is 6 inches longer and it's 2 inches wider, but interestingly the length is all in the body. It's only about 0.2 of an inch longer as far as the wheelbase goes. The Santa Fe, which this one is, has a little bit higher level of available equipment at the top end, and of course the styling is a little bit different. In my estimation, the Santa Fe is a little bit more conservative, a little bit more, let's say, upright as far as the styling goes. The current Tucson is more aggressive looking. I have driven one of those cars, a Tucson, and of course I've driven this Santa Fe as well. And driving wise, they're pretty darn similar at this point for the 2022 model year and moving forward into 2023 as well. They're based on the same chassis, so you don't feel a whole ton of difference when it comes to driving the car. You do have a little bit more room for your backseat passengers and a little bit more cargo room in the Santa Fe. That's kind of where the extra 6 inches of length goes. But I think at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to probably the styling is the biggest thing. Maybe the budget secondary, since the Tucson is a little bit less expensive, and quite probably, since it's 2022, which one is actually available on the dealer lot for you to purchase. Maybe which one has less of a markup on it. I don't know. I'm not intimately familiar with the market on Hyundais at this point. If I had to make a choice, I would choose the Tucson. Not that there's anything wrong with this car. I like the Santa Fe a lot. It's a very nice car. The reason I would choose the Tucson is I kind of prefer how it looks. I like that kind of crazy looking alien eye front end that the Tucson has, and it's a little bit less expensive to boot. So there you go. I think that the Tucson would be a better value for me personally, but there isn't a whole ton of daylight in between them, whichever way you slice the loaf of bread. Now we're going to take our handy dandy laser measuring tape and measure out the cargo space. The length of the rear cargo area from the back of the cargo area to the bottom of the back seat, 3 feet and 4 inches. The width of the cargo area at its widest point, all the way from the Harman Kardon subwoofer to the inside of that little cubby hole, 4 feet 10 inches. The width of the cargo area at its narrowest point in between the wheel wells, 3 feet 7 inches. And now we are going to fold down the back seat to measure that. The length of the cargo area, from the rear of the cargo area to the back of the front seat with the second row seat folded down. 6 feet 1 inch, and that's an approximate measurement because that could vary based on where you have that front seat positioned. On this particular car right now, it's positioned probably about medium. It could come back a little more, it could go forward a little bit. So we are going to say approximately 6 feet and 1 inches. And it should be noted that that back seat folds almost flat, but not quite. The height of the rear cargo area, 2 feet and 7 inches. And if you ever need to lift something into the back of your Santa Fe, you are going to have to lift it 2 feet and 8 inches to get it up into the cargo area. And as long as we're back here, we have a little bit of storage underneath. This is kind of a repair kit. You don't get a spare tire on the hybrid model. And we have a battery underneath here, so if you're ever looking for the battery to your Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid, check the cargo area. Now we're going to have a look at the passenger space in the Hyundai Santa Fe, and for this I use myself. I'm 6'5", so let's see if I can sit behind myself in a Santa Fe. All right, so let's have a look at the passenger space. As we can see, I fit well in here, good headroom, knees not quite touching. And if I get in the back seat, same thing, enough headroom, knees not touching here. I think this is a little bit roomier than the Tucson that I've done before. So the Santa Fe, making good use of its an additional 6 inches of length, giving me a little bit more room back here. Now we're going to start talking about the features on this Hyundai Santa Fe Limited Hybrid, and in the back seat we do have some nice features. The back seats recline, that's a nice touch. Of course, we have dual USB ports in the back seat so that our back seat passengers can charge their mobile devices. And we have air vents as well to give air from the front to keep everybody cool and happy in the back. One other nice thing that I wasn't quite expecting in this car, but it has it, is a 115 volt household style power outlet, so you can plug in a lamp if that's what you'd like to do. And we do have the Paris Hilton package with the rear sunshades on the Limited model. Now I'm going to move up front and start talking about the features up here. And quite frankly, once you get into the Limited trim level, there's so much stuff that I just can't point it all out individually. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to start by talking about the center stack. Now in my day-to-day life, I drive a Subaru Legacy XT Touring. And the choice Subaru made with that car was to absorb all of the functionality, and it has a lot of the same functionality that this Santa Fe Limited has, into the big giant vertically oriented touchscreen. And I don't really like that because I don't like interacting with the touchscreen as much as I have to in that car. Hyundai has gone completely the other way in this one. Now you do have a touchscreen and there is a lot of functionality in there, but as I was driving this car last night and all of these buttons on the center stack were lit up, I realized maybe why Subaru made the choice that they did with the Legacy. You just have so many buttons down here. It is a little bit overwhelming to look at. A lot of them are pretty much the same size. Obviously, they're very well noted what they do with the different icons and everything, and it is the sort of thing that you would get used to, but when you first get in the car, it's a bit overwhelming. Part of me kind of likes it because I like have so many physical buttons, but part of me thinks maybe they could have put some of this stuff into the touchscreen. I feel like the things that really need to have buttons are the climate control and not necessarily the transmission right there next to it, but that's the choice that Hyundai has made with this car, and it's an interesting look, especially at night, but that's one thing that you get with the Santa Fe is a lot of buttons. Something else that you get with the Santa Fe Limited, and I really like this, is wireless charging. Now, I've driven a lot of cars with wireless charging. In fact, my Legacy has it. And it's just sort of a pad usually that you lay your phone onto. But in this one, it's more of a slot. and you put your phone in there, it's held in place, and the wireless charging works great. And that way, it kind of keeps you from messing with your phone and looking at it when you're driving. I think it's a very nice place to put it, something that maybe some other automakers should copy. This car does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You do have to plug them in to use it. And I kind of misspoke when I did my review of the Tucson that I did a few months ago. I said that that car had wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it didn't, because the Tucson that I reviewed had the larger 10.25-inch navigation screen. And on the Tucsons, when you get that screen, you get no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Don't ask me why, but if you get one of the cheaper Tucsons with the smaller screen, it's wireless. Well, this car has the 10.25-inch screen with the navigation system, but it is a different unit because you can plug your Android phone or your iPhone in and get the Android Auto or the Apple CarPlay. Another interesting note in this car, for some reason, Hyundai uses Harman Kardon as the premium sound system in this, whereas they use Bose in the Tucson. That's another strange difference, and that's very odd because normally auto manufacturers choose one supplier of premium sound pieces and stick with it. Whether or not they're actually using Harman Kardon or Bose pieces or just slapping the name on is subject to debate, but I do find it strange that they offer high-end sound systems from different manufacturers. Some of the real luxury automakers do that, but like they'll offer Bang & Olufsen as a much, $6,000 upgrade over the Harman Kardon. This is not the case, just different premium audio for different car lines. That is a unique decision that Hyundai has made. I will say I kind of like the look of the other 10.25-inch display screen that I used in the Tucson. This one somehow just doesn't quite look as nice, but it does have the digital gauge cluster. I have driven a Hyundai Santa Cruz with this. It's a relatively nice feature. I wish that you could kind of mess with it a little bit more. I wish that you could make it show you an engine tachometer. I know with a hybrid, that's not necessarily all that important because a lot of times the gasoline engine is not running, but I would still like the option to see that. It's a digital screen, why not give it to you? One thing that this car does have is the blind spot view monitor. So when you put your blinker on, it'll replace one of the gauges with a camera showing you what is in your blind spot view. And I have a little bit of a secret to tell you, this is not that great of a feature, because when you're driving on the highway and you put your blinker on and you're trying to change lanes at 70 miles an hour, you're not going to be staring at your gauge cluster. You should be looking in your blind spot. At the very least, look in your rearview mirror. Of course, this car has blind spot monitoring as well. So I don't find that to be super useful. The only time I've found it to be useful is when you're on city streets and you're making a right turn and you're checking to see if there's a bicyclist coming. One more feature that I'm a big fan of is the automatic windshield wipers, and I'll demonstrate those now. The sensor is right here, and if you do that, you get some windshield wiping. And if you really want to have a good time, give your friend a bottle of water and have them stand on the driver's side and do that. It'll be hilarious, I promise. I may have gotten a little bit wet myself, but it's so hot today, I don't even care. Anyway, that's my video on the Hyundai Santa Fe. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye. Oh.